Hello and welcome to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Written and researched in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson and produced in the studios of WRMI Shortwave in Okeechobee, Florida. I'm Jeff White. Today on Wavescan, the world's busiest airport, AWR, was there. AWR was also at the recent HFCC High Frequency Coordination Conference in Bulgaria, and rare, unusual, unique QSL contest Radio Tashkent via Radio Havana, Cuba. The entries in the Internet Encyclopedia Wikipedia inform us that the world's busiest airport in regular operation is the Hartsfield Airport, located some 7 miles south of Atlanta, Georgia. Each year, Hartsfield processes 900,000 aircraft traffic movements, landings, and takeoffs. This is an average of 17,000 traffic movements each week. However, there's another airport in the United States that processes nearly 50% more traffic movements, landings, and takeoffs at a total of 25,000 traffic movements in a week, though for only 1 week each year. This airplane phenomenon is played out each year in July or August at the Whitman Regional Airport, just 2 miles south of Oshkosh, a lakeside city in Wisconsin. The name Oshkosh means claw in the tribal Menominee language, and it was the name of a notable chief in the early days of European settlement. Fur traders established the first European settlement, though the timber trade spurred subsequent development. At one stage, Oshkosh was known as the sawdust capital of the world, with 62 lumber mills in the area. The city was incorporated in 1853, and the population these days is around 70,000. Oshkosh is home to 3 diverse tourist attractions: the Aviation Museum, with 250 historic airplanes and 5 aviation cinemas; the Creation Museum, with 750,000 square feet of walk-through exhibits; and the historic Adventist Village, with 3 blocks of historic buildings and artifacts. Oshkosh is best known for its annual air show. This event is staged every summer around the end of July and the beginning of August, and it draws 500,000 visitors from as many as 70 different countries. Thousands of people are accommodated in neat rows of tents on the enlarged property, measuring nearly 2¼ square miles. And beside each tent is a parked airplane, not a motor car. There are some 800 commercial exhibits on display for the week-long event. For this year's event, just a few weeks back, nearly 1,000 media personnel came in from countries on 5 different continents to provide news reports for back-home newspapers and radio and TV stations. The annual air show also operates its own FM radio station in order to provide news and information to the massive number of attendees. The airport supervises 3 runways, and while in operation for the annual air show, there is 1 departure or 1 landing every 10 seconds, the world's busiest. During this year's air show, 2,500 participants cooperated in the construction of a Zenith Cruiser airplane, which was flown for the first time on the last day of the show. A few days after the end of the annual air show this year, this same property was taken over for a major international youth festival. This event ran for almost a week, running from August 11th through 15th, and it attracted a total attendance of more than 50,000 young people from 50 different countries. These camporee events are staged for young people known as Pathfinders, and this year's camporee was planned under the name Forever Faithful International Camporee. These camporees are organized by the Youth Department of the Seventh-day Adventist denomination, and they are for young people in the age bracket from 10 to 15 years, together with family members and church leaders. They are staged every 5 years. The Pathfinder organization is very similar to Boy Scouts and Girl Guides. It began in 1907, and today there are 2 million Pathfinders in 90,000 Pathfinder clubs in 150 countries worldwide. The huge air show property at Oshkosh is one of the few available venues in the United States that is large enough to accommodate the influx of attendees with all of the events and activities. A large number of the youthful attendees participated in community events in Oshkosh, and they also entered into many different contests and events in the camporee itself. Guided drones were in use for the monitoring of motor traffic and for aerial photography. A special 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle featuring the camporee was made available at this year's event. Local media, radio, TV, and newspaper provided ample coverage of the Pathfinder camporee, and the camporee administration provided a daily newspaper in color. International news from the camporee via satellite and TV was provided by the Hope Channel from Silver Spring in Maryland on the edge of Washington, D.C., and by 3ABN TV from Illinois with its 2 mobile vans. The camporee at Oshkosh also operated its own local FM station, Pathfinder Radio, on 89.4 megahertz in order to provide information and news to attendees. Among the many display booths was one that gave an overview of the activities of Adventist World Radio. Yes, AWR was there. A special issue of the youth magazine Guide was dedicated entirely to the work and results of AWR ministry, and display boards showed the widespread outreach statistics of AWR programming. The AWR booth was under the direction of Shelley Friesland, who is communication director at the AWR headquarters in suburban Washington, D.C. Among the interesting AWR statistics, on the air worldwide in nearly 100 languages from 10 shortwave transmitter sites. Program production in 70 affiliated studios on all continents. 1,500 FM stations in Russia carry AWR programming. Nationwide coverage throughout India on FM and other local media, and on the air to Asia and the Pacific from 5 shortwave transmitters on the island of Guam. Well, the next Pathfinder camporee is scheduled for Oshkosh again during the summer of the year 2019.
You're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Send your comments and reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana 46229 in the United States. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana 46229 in the USA. Or you can email us at wavescan@awr.org. Our email once again, wavescan@awr.org.
Reports from India give further details regarding the disastrous flood situation in the Indian territory of Kashmir. This massive flooding was brought about by heavy monsoon rains, which have left 1/3 of a million people stranded without the basic necessities for sustaining life, and already the death toll has reached more than 500 and is still climbing. Huge numbers of survivors are living temporarily in public and religious buildings in the state capital, Srinagar, and in the smaller towns. The only highway connecting Kashmir with the rest of India is impassable, and likewise the single railway line is also flooded. The only means of physical communication is by plane. The Jhelum River runs through Srinagar and onward into Pakistan, and already there are now 750,000 refugees in Pakistan due to these raging flood inundations. The prime ministers of both India and Pakistan have offered aid to each other's territory. Currently, 41 aid agencies are providing assistance to survivors in Kashmir, including ADRA, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, which is a sister organization to Adventist World Radio. According to information from Jose Jacob, VU2JOS at Hyderabad in India, Radio Kashmir is now back on the air again, with a mix of programming produced in temporary studios locally and at AIR headquarters in New Delhi. Additional electronic equipment was flown in from Delhi to Kashmir by the Indian Air Force. At present, the only radio transmitter on the air in Srinagar is their FM facility, which is installed at an elevation in the Shankaracharya Hills. Likewise, Radio Jammu in the nearby city and territory with the same name is on the air with supportive flood information. From Alejandro Slain at the Grupo Radio Escucha Argentina and other sources, we get the following bad news for shortwave listeners. Radio Exterior de España will soon be leaving shortwave. Radio Televisión Española, RTVE, is going to eliminate its shortwave service in order to save 1.2 million euros per year, mostly in electricity. And it will close the REE transmitter site in Noblejas, Spain. You may remember that it closed the Costa Rica relay site several months ago. REE has a 72-year history of broadcasting on shortwave. The external service will continue to broadcast, but only on the Internet. RTVE says no employees will be laid off. The 13 employees at the Noblejas site will be relocated to other parts of the corporation. In 2012, REE eliminated much of its shortwave transmissions to North America and Europe. The unions that represent REE employees say that listeners in large parts of Asia, the North Atlantic, and Africa will no longer have access to Radio Exterior de España, since Internet access is limited or non-existent in these areas. Currently, Radio Exterior de España broadcasts in 10 languages to all parts of the world on shortwave. We don't know when the shortwave cutoff will happen exactly, but there have been rumors that it would occur perhaps in October. The A14 broadcast season ends on October 26, 2014.
Radio Exterior de España.
English Language Service. Hello and a warm welcome from Madrid. I'm Alison Hughes. Our studio manager tonight is Miguel Ángel León.
Radio Exterior de España.
You may remember that last week on Wavescan we were talking about potential new DRM digital shortwave receivers from India. Well, this week we have an update. At the International Broadcasting Conference in Amsterdam on September 12th, the DRM Consortium launched the first DRM AM model receiver produced in India and for global use. The AV-DR 1401, designed and produced by Communication Systems Incorporated under the brand name Avion Electronics of India, is a digital DRM shortwave, medium wave, as well as analog AM and FM receiver with stereo reception, offering some of the extra features that make digital superior to analog. More choice in perfect sound, MPEG audio, multimedia applications, and local interactive text and media called Journaline, automatic tuning by station, not frequency, emergency alert capability, etc. Well, as I mentioned, we were talking about DRM and Indian DRM receivers last week in an interview that we recorded at the recent High Frequency Coordination Conference in Sofia, Bulgaria. An interview with Calvin Carter of Continental Electronics, George Ross of Transworld Radio Guam, and Jerry Plummer of WWCR in Nashville, Tennessee. The overall topic of that interview was the 25th anniversary of the formation of the U.S. National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters, or NASB. Today on Wavescan, we present the final part of that interview. There were, at the initial meeting in New Orleans of this Radio 89, the sort of organizational meeting of NASB, the stations represented were KNLS, World Christian Broadcasting,
right.
KUSW, remember KUSW in Salt Lake City? WRNO, Joe Costello was there.
Yeah.
Then WSHB, WCSN, and KHBI, which were the Christian Science Monitor stations.
Sure were, yeah.
Doug Garlinger himself was there from WHRI, which I'm not sure at that point they may have only had one transmitter site, but eventually they acquired some others.
That's right.
And then Ted Haney from KFBS, Far East Broadcasting.
Yeah, and they're still around too.
They are still around. They were in Saipan, right? KFBS? Is it?
KFBS shut their site down 2 years ago.
Okay. And then I think they moved some of the transmitters to
The Philippines.
Philippines.
To Bacawi,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was.
But they are still an associate member of NASB.
Exactly.
And then we have, in fact, we have a Far East Broadcasting representative here at the meeting in
HFCC.
Graham Baker, I think.
Yes,
From,
yes.
KSDA, Adventist World Radio in Guam,
Guam.
was present at this organizational meeting, and there are a couple of engineers, transmitter frequency engineers from Adventist World Radio here, Pino and Claudius.
Claudius, yes, both here and both regular attendees
Yes.
at HFCC, as is George,
Yes,
and us too.
And then there was the legendary George Jacobs of George Jacobs and Associates,
Oh,
who
yeah.
I can remember the days he was here as well. Yes.
Yeah. Well, back in those days, I think he did the frequency selection for probably the majority of the U.S. stations.
Oh, yeah.
And before 1982, apparently the only shortwave stations licensed in the U.S., private shortwave stations, were KGEI in California,
Right.
which has since shut down, KTWR in Guam,
Yes,
our
still
station,
here, right?
WINB in Red Lion, Pennsylvania,
Exactly.
which is still around,
Still around.
and WIFR in Okeechobee. Changed call letters, but it's still there.
Still there, yeah.
But then, interestingly enough, from 1982 until 1989, in those 7 years, a bunch of new shortwave stations came on the air from the U.S., including KCBI in Dallas, which is no longer with us since a few years ago. KFBS in Saipan, which we mentioned, and has now the equipment's been moved to the
What about
Philippines.
KNLS? Were they?
KNLS
yeah.
in Anchor Point, Alaska, yes. KHBI in Saipan, which was the former KYOI, so that was a commercial station, which then went to the Christian Science Monitor, I believe,
I
right?
believe it was. wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Then we had KSDA in Guam, the Adventist World Radio Station, KUSW, the commercial station in Salt Lake City, Utah.
I remember those.
Now,
yeah.
that one was eventually bought out by Trinity Broadcasting, KTBN.
Sure was.
And they broadcast for many years, I think, the audio from the TBN television network.
That's exactly right. That's
And
exactly right.
unfortunately, they went off the air a few years ago as well. They now own, by the way, a big amusement park. I want to say amusement park, sort of an amusement park in Orlando.
Oh, do they?
Yes, it's the Holy Land Experience, which is a very interesting
That's in
place.
Orlando?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Was KVOH?
KVOH in Rancho Simi, California.
It sure was. Yeah.
They went off the air, and they're back on the air
They
now.
are back. They are
and
back.
of course,
And looking to expand too, right, George? Aren't they talking about expanding maybe?
I'm not sure.
Heard rumor or something? I don't know. Maybe.
I think they were talking about expanding
maybe I
in
dreamed
the
that.
Middle East.
I don't know.
Oh,
maybe
excuse me. You're absolutely correct. That's right. We did have some discussions this year at the Greenville conference we
something
just had.
maybe some expansion possibilities anyway. Yeah.
And of course, KVOH is one of the stations that broadcasts Wavescan as well.
It sure does. Yeah, it does.
KYOI in Saipan, and WCSN in Scotts Corner, Maine, which was the Christian Science Monitor station.
There were several of those Christian Science monitors, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, they had 3, I think. Oh, wait a minute, there's more here.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. More stations licensed in the U.S. between 1982 and 1989. There was WHRI in Noblesville, Indiana, which has now, it went off the air several years ago now, but their transmitters were moved to South Carolina, right?
Yeah,
And now the WHRI call letters have been moved to South Carolina,
Sure
to the new
have.
station.
Yes.
Just as the WYFR call letters have been moved to
Okeechobee from Miami.
to WRMI. There's WMLK in Bethel, Pennsylvania, which I think is currently inactive,
It's inactive, but it's still a good chance maybe they will come back.
and WRNO in New Orleans.
They're still active on a periodic basis.
Right, they were initially a commercial station owned by Joe Costello, and then after he passed, it went to a religious organization based in Texas. I
Yes,
think,
that's
now
where they
owns
are.
it.
That's who owns them now.
But the transmitter is still in suburban New Orleans.
Yes.
And then, last but not least, this is alphabetical, I think, is W. Oh, the police seem to be after us here in Sophia. We're here on the main square, by the way, or one of the main squares. I forget what it's called, the Sveta Nedelya Square. There's a very nice Orthodox church right in front of us here, in front of the hotel.
Well, good. They missed us this time.
But we're on one of the main boulevards in Sofia called Vitosha, almost on Vitosha here.
Exactly.
And there's all kinds of shops and restaurants and
Activities.
Yeah. So lots of anyway.
We can recommend it for people to come to visit.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
No
yes.
doubt. No doubt.
Well, it's amazing to see Roman architecture here, still from back in the Roman Empire days.
Yes.
As well as these churches that date back from the Middle Ages to even before that.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have gone down to the -1 level on the hotel here yet.
Oh, it's
have you?
nice. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
I
nice,
haven't seen it yet, but I understand there are ruins. Are they Roman ruins?
Yes, they are. In fact, the Roman gate is right around the corner here to where the old Roman center was. And there's a museum around the corner as well that's got all Roman artifacts in it.
And a lot of excavation and renovation going on, too. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Because this city, I think, was eventually called, or was originally called Serdica under the Romans, right? And now it's
Very
Sofia.
interesting history.
And of course, it was occupied by the Ottomans for many
It
years.
was Ottoman Empire. Yes.
Anyway, WWCR was the last station on the list here. Of those new ones, I don't know when this was written. There have been a few more since then, I think, but WRMI for one. And
But that's several good ones to point out during that time period.
So,
So they've been around a long time, going on 25 years, and still successful, I believe. Synergy is a good thing.
And NASB now has a number of associate members. We still have, of course, good old Continental. We have Ludo Mas, Broadcast Belgium.
Yes.
Is an associate member. Far East Broadcasting, now that they don't have their own FCC licensed station, they're still an associate member.
Oh, yeah.
And a number of others, I think some of which are here at the HFCC.
At
with us.
HFCC,
Yeah.
yes.
So I guess as we look forward now to the next 25 years, who knows what shortwave broadcasting will have.
Between now and then, we'll see. Change is constant, I guess, right?
Yeah, I would say the shape and the look of it will definitely be different, but with the needs that we see in the world and things changing all the time, how can we not have shortwave broadcasts in the future?
That's right.
You think Continental will still be building shortwave transmitters in 25 years?
If George is still around, yes. If George is still broadcasting, we'll still be making them.
But by that time, Okeechobee will need some replacements, probably.
Oh, yeah. And believe me, Cal will call on you.
Well, thanks, gentlemen, for being with us here on WaveScan today, and congratulations to the NASB on its quarter century, and we'll see what happens in the future.
That's right. Thanks a lot for having us.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
You were listening to an interview recorded at the High Frequency Coordination Conference in Sofia, Bulgaria, during the last week of August. We were talking there with Jerry Plummer of WWCR, George Ross of KTWR in Guam, and Calvin Carter of Continental Electronics. We'll have more from the HFCC in Bulgaria on upcoming editions of WaveScan. Well, we want to tell you about our rare, unusual, unique QSL contest. Shortwave listeners, international radio monitors, and DXers around the world are invited to search their collection of QSL cards and letters for rare, unusual, and unique verifications. You're invited to make up a list, up to 5 in number, of your QSLs in this collective category, and to write a short paragraph about each one, as an important part of our annual DX contest. Partial entries for this year's contest are considered to be valid. At the conclusion of the contest, we at WaveScan are planning to write up and publish a detailed compilation of interesting information on a worldwide basis about the rare, unusual, and unique QSLs that come to light in this way. This will be the first occasion in the history of international radio broadcasting for the compilation of such a QSL list, and you're all invited to submit entries. Full details of this remarkable contest are available on several websites, such as ontheshortwaves.com, mt-shortwave.blogspot.com, facebook.com/IndianDXReport/posts, POSTS, alokeshgupta.blogspot.com, awr.com/2014/06. And also, of course, at the awr.org website. Do a search there for Wavescan. And as an example of a rare, unusual, or unique QSL card, back around 30 years ago, Radio Moscow was heard in the Americas with regular programming on shortwave via a relay from Havana, Cuba. On one particular occasion, while Adrian Peterson, our editor, was in the United States, he was listening to the Havana relay. But instead of programming from Radio Moscow, it was programming from Radio Tashkent. Apparently, this was a program switching mistake. Well, Adrian sent a reception report to Radio Tashkent in Uzbekistan, not really expecting a reply regarding this unusual and unexpected relay transmission via Havana on 9600 kHz. However, back in 1982, Radio Tashkent was also on the air on the same channel, 9600 kHz, from its own transmitter site near Tashkent. In any case, Adrian did receive a QSL card from Radio Tashkent in their unique style, acknowledging their transmission on 9600 kHz. Surely, this must be the only QSL card verifying Radio Tashkent via Havana, Cuba. Well, we end today's edition of Wavescan with some music from Bulgaria, where we were recently at the HFCC conference. This is the Mystery of Bulgarian Voices Choir, conducted by Dora Hristova. Thanks for listening to Wavescan, the International DX program from Adventist World Radio, researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson. Next week on this program, another blast from the past, the biggest aspidistra in the world. More from the HSCC conference in Bulgaria, and our Australian DX report, as well as information about our DX contest. Several QSL cards are available. You can send your AWR and KSDA reception reports for Wavescan to the AWR address in Indianapolis that we'll give you in a moment, and also to the station your radio is tuned to, such as KVOH, WWCR, WRMI, or the AWR relay stations that carry Wavescan. Our address is Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. Our email address is wavescan@awr.org. That's wavescan@awr.org. I'm Jeff White at WRMI in Okeechobee, Florida. Till next week, good listening, everyone.